Hi, my name is Elena Hochheiser. I'm a senior from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm sitting on one of our beautiful balconies outside of the dining hall. We eat in the dining hall 3 times a day. It's a great place to socialize and hang out with our friends. I came to Santa Fe from back east because I wanted to go out west, and honestly, I wanted to get as far from home as possible. So when I applied to the Santa Fe campus, I actually thought I was in California. I grew up in Baltimore and I said, I'm going to the one that's not Annapolis. But I was delighted when I came out here for the first time because it's absolutely beautiful. There's a totally different speed of life than in Pittsburgh and in Baltimore. It's so much calmer and it feels like there's really time to enjoy everything. One of the things I love most is getting to see the mountains wherever I go in town. You can go on a walk and just anywhere you look, there's some mountains, and especially at sunset, it's really beautiful. One of the biggest differences between Santa Fe and Pittsburgh is that everything here is really spread out. I grew up in a neighborhood in Pittsburgh where I could walk everywhere, and so it's kind of surprising when I wanted to go to the grocery store and it's 2 miles away. And it's still a surprise to me when my friends say, oh, you know, we're going to go on a short drive or a weekend trip and it's 5 hours away. And I'm like, that's Philadelphia from where I live. That's a once a year excursion. Another thing that's been really different about Santa Fe is that it's sunny all of the time here. Pittsburgh is super cloudy, so it took a while to get used to the fact that I could see big blue skies every day. But now that I've gotten kind of tired of the rain every time I go back home. One of the other things I've loved about Santa Fe is the fact that I've gotten to really explore the Rocky Mountains. So I've hiked Atalaya a bunch, which is just the mountain right behind the college. And my parents came out to visit over fall break, which was a lot of fun because we got to do a really big road trip and go to White Sands and Carlsbad Caverns and visit one of my mom's friends here in New Mexico who runs a tortoise rehabilitation sanctuary, which is really awesome. One of my absolute favorite things about Santa Fe is the fact, like, basically every day since freshman year, I've taken a walk around Santa Fe. And so I've also kind of lived in different parts of town and on campus, so I've gotten to really explore everywhere around. And we have some amazing trails kind of in the mountains here, but then also in town, like the rail trail and the Asakia Trail and the river trail, which goes along the Santa Fe River. And so I've loved getting to watch all of the seasons go by and take my friends out to different parts of town that I love and just get to share this place with them and also get to talk about the program. But truly, it's beautiful, and in all seasons, there's something more spectacular to see. I've been trying to identify birds more here, so I've learned like about the Pinon jay, and I've gotten to kind of learn about what a bunch of the different types of bushes are and local plants, and you can see the river at its peak and when it's smaller. And so it's a beautiful town, but it's also a beautiful place to kind of get to contemplate and process what we do and think about how the philosophical questions that we ask kind of find their footing in the real world. So I've loved getting to study in such a remarkable place because I think it's kept me grounded while we're asking questions about being, which are kind of very abstract questions a lot of the time. So one of the things that's really enriched my learning about living in Santa Fe is the fact that it's so stunning and it's so different from everything else I'm used to. I'm always grateful every single day to get to wake up here. Speaking of studies, St. John's is rigorous, but it's also joyful. So there are so many good stories of my time at St. John's. But one moment that really particularly sticks out to me about kind of what I've learned here and what it's mean to like think about that in the real world was I was traveling last spring break. This is my junior year, not this past year, and I was in a plane on the tarmac at this airport, and I was looking out like over the kind of road, and you know when a road's really hot and it's got all of that kind of like hot air coming off of it, and it looks like, you know, all these things are moving around. And in freshman lab and also in senior lab, as I learned after that, we spend a lot of time thinking about questions of heat. And so there's this whole phlogiston and caloric debate between scientists of the, you know, mid 18th and 19th centuries. And I remember looking out at this tarmac and having this thought that I'd kind of had before, but not in this way, where I was like, what is happening on that tarmac? Like, why is heat working in that way? And it was kind of delightful because the simple answer, which I got from my parents when I asked them, was that, you know, they said, oh, well, you know, atoms are moving. And I was like, well, that's not a sufficient answer. What even are atoms? And so it's kind of it was a fun, joyful moment about the St. John's education, which is we kind of think we know all of these things, and then we actually go look and ask the questions. And sometimes the answers are deceptively simple, but sometimes what it means to really know those answers and put them into the thing that you're looking at and understand it is an entirely different process altogether. And so I think I was on the tarmac in the plane, and the whole kind of weight of this education hit me, and I was like, oh, I did learn how to question things differently and think differently about the world that has always been right in front of me under my eyes this whole time. Questions like that come up because of the lab program are things that are kind of particularly near and dear to my heart because I've spent 3 years as a St. John's lab assistant. So here at the college, we have 3 years of a lab class that it doesn't really resemble any other science class at any institution because it's not really simply a science class, but it's also not really a philosophy of science class. It's a little bit of both. So our freshman year, we kind of start with biology, and then we do chemistry in the spring semester. Junior year, it's physics and electricity and magnetism. And senior year, we start with quantum mechanics, and then we do a lot of biology, specifically microbiology. So the lab program's a pretty spectacular part of what we do, and it's really important to, I think, the philosophical project and the intellectual project of the college as a whole. So one of the things that I've liked as a lab assistant is that basically the lab program is comprised of readings, like all of the other classes that we have, but also what we call practica, which are basically some combination of experiments and then recreations and replications of experiments that have been done by scientists throughout kind of the history of science. So dissections in the model of Galen, or chemical experiments having to do with the synthesis of water or the combustion of magnesium by scientists like Lavoisier. So we do a ton of different experimental things throughout the 3 years, and that's a huge component of the lab program. And as a lab assistant, we are basically the people in the classroom that are leading the classes through, alongside the tutor, through this practical component of the education. And so I found, as somebody that's really interested in science, I worked in a lab in high school, and I didn't want to sacrifice that scientific interest of mine when I came to St. John's. It's been a really rewarding way to get to do something that's hands-on and that's kind of supporting and investing in my own education and that of my peers. So I think all of that goes to say is that St. John's is a great way to still kind of maintain and improve and promote your interest in things like science and mathematics, and that is a really important part of what we do, is thinking about scientific questions. And it turns out that they have a lot of bearing and importance in the history of philosophy and what it means to think philosophically. And I will add, there aren't just lab assistants, there are also writing assistants and Greek assistants and French assistants and math assistants. So there's so many ways as a student that you can get help and advice from your peers, not just from your tutors. And what I really love about the assistant program is that it gives students a way to work with people that I think understand the experience they're going through, especially when a class is tough. And so as a lab assistant, you're doing a little bit less of that kind of walking people through the kind of material parts of each class, but you still have an opportunity to really work with people and talk with people about questions and concerns and difficulties. And so I think that that's a question that we see a lot, which is, St. John's is rigorous. You're reading all the time. You have 4 classes, all of which, are a lot of work and a lot of investment if you really care about it. And there's the question of, well, how do I deal with this rigor? And so going to the academic assistants is one way of doing that. But I would also say, always overestimate how much time you have to spend on your readings. Ask your tutors and peers you admire for help. Take your time and enjoy what we're doing. And also, something you see with the assistants is often they're people, and this is true of everyone, but there are people that have said, oh, you know what, like this thing was hard for me at first, and then I worked at it and I got better at it. So what I love about the college is that I think we're all on a learning process, whatever form that takes, and everyone that's here is really committed to the act of improving what they're doing with regard to this education. So St. John's is hard in a lot of ways, but part of the joy of it is not just getting to live in such a beautiful place, but also, I think, getting to engage in this kind of ritualistic act almost of self-improvement every single day, and being surrounded by a community of people that are also really committed to improving their learning and their education. Now that I'm saying all of this, I've gotten a little sad about the fact that I graduate this year. There's a lot I'm going to miss on campus. The view from my Levin Hall language classroom, where I get to look over at Monte Sol and Monte Luna and see the birds fly by every day. The view from campus, just kind of looking out from the dining hall and from the coffee shop onto the mountains and onto Los Alamos, which are particularly beautiful when they're coated with snow in winter. Just sitting, oh my gosh, on the benches outside of ESL. I do that like every single day. It's so much fun. It's a great way to like chat and to just be outside and sit in the sun and read. That's one of my favorite spots on campus. And I'm definitely going to miss the community. I think every day recently I've been realizing just how special what we get to do is. I think many of us won't find our way into classrooms for the rest of our lives where we just get to ask authentically and honestly every question that we have without a fear that those questions will be ignored or diminished. And I think that's really powerful. So I'm going to miss that. I'm going to miss all of these amazing people that I've gotten to do this journey with. But there are new adventures in store that I'm very excited for. So I'll be exploring the Rockies a lot more by hiking the Continental Divide Trail starting in July. And then I'm hoping to join the Peace Corps or AmeriCorps and spend a few years doing service and giving back before doing more education.